Hello everyone. Let's look at the meanings of shlokas 100 and 101 in Lalita Sahasranamam. Anāhatābja nilayā śyāmābhā vadanadvayā daṃśhṭrojjvalā kśhamālādhi dharā rudhira saṃsthitā kāḻarātryādi śakhtavugha vṛtā snigdhaudanapriyā mahāvīrendra varadā rākiṇyambā svarūpiṇī. So before we take a look at the meanings of the namas, just a quick reminder that we are looking at Devi in the chakras. So each chakra is envisioned as a lotus in Sri Vidya tradition, and each lotus has certain number of petals, and each lotus has a presiding deity that's an emanation of Lalita. And we are looking at those deities in the order of the number of faces that they have. So now last time we looked at Dakini, and now we are going to look at the next deity. With that, let's take a look at the meanings of the namas. Anāhatābja nilayā. Anāhata is a chakra that's called as the heart chakra. Abjam means lotus. So the heart chakra is envisioned as a lotus. So she is residing in the center of the Anāhata lotus. Śyāmābhā. Śyāma means dark or black. So śyāmābhā. Abha means hue or complexion. So she is dark complexioned, śyāmābhā. Vadanadvayā. Vadanam means face, dvaya means two. So now we are looking at the deity who has two faces, and that deity resides in the Anāhata chakra, and she has a dark complexion. Daṃśhṭrojjvalā. Daṃśhṭra means tusks. So she has two tusks. Ujjvalā means lightning. So it's shining or it's bright. So she has two bright tusks. Kśhamālādhi dharā. Akshamala, mala means garland. And what does that garland contain? Aksha here you can think of it as rudraksha. So the one of the beads in the garland is or the mala is a rudraksha, and adidara. So there is also other beads. So she is wearing a garland or a chain that has rudraksha and other beads. Dharā means wearing. Rudhira saṃsthitā. So rudhiram means blood. So she is residing in the blood. So we said that each of the deities, chakra deities, is responsible for a particular body tissue. That's called as dhatu. So here she is responsible for blood. Kāḻarātryādi śakhtavugha vṛtā. So we said in each lotus there are multiple petals. So in the Anāhata chakra there are 12 petals in that lotus, and out of the 12 petals there is a subdeity who is in each of those petals. So kāḻarātryādi, starting with kāḻarātri, there are śakhtavugha. Augha means multitude. Vṛtā means surrounded by. So she is surrounded by many deities starting with kāḻarātri. So out of those 12 petals there are many of these deities. Snigdhaudanapriyā. Snigdha means greasy. Odana means cooked rice. So priya means fond of. She is fond of cooked rice that's greasy. What does that mean? The greasy here we can think of it as ghee. So she is fond of cooked rice mixed with ghee. If you can think about it, all that makes the blood good in the body. mahāvīrendra varadā. So mahāvīrendra means those who are courageous. Varadā. Varadā means she gives boons to those who are courageous. But in this particular case, the courageous, the Veera, they are courageous because Indra, they have won over their senses. So those who have won over their senses are considered as Mahaviras here. So if the people who have won over their senses, then she bestows boons for them. Let's explore a little bit in here. So we've seen this earlier. We have many chakras. If you see, it starts with Mūladhara, Svadhisthana, Manipura, Anāhata, Vishuddhi, Agnya, Sahasrara. So this is the order from bottom up. And we've also seen that when there is a Brahma Granthi, right? After the raises, the Kundalini raises, the first thing that the Kundalini severs or removes for us is the Brahma Granthi. Brahma Granthi is the place where these Granthis are knots. This is where the energy can get stuck. And why would the energy get stuck? It's also related to our thoughts and everything. So it's not just a pure physical exercise. What happens if an individual, so Brahma Granthi is the place where we hold all our whatever is dear to us in this life, whatever gives security to us in our life. So it could be attachment to all the relationships that we have. It could be attachment to money, property, etc. Anything that makes us feel secure. So the first thing that happens is that Brahma Granthi will get severed. And then if you go further up, then there is Vishnu Granthi that gets severed. The Vishnu Granthi is related to the ego. So the identity we have for ourselves. And if you see, most of the time our actions are governed by that, right? And even if we get angry, if we think of ourselves to be very smart and somebody else says that we are not very smart, then we get mad. That's because they are challenging our identity. So that identity makes us view this world in a certain way. It actually clouds our buddhi, and it doesn't give us that clarity that we are one and the same as the ultimate reality. So that's a Vishnu Granthi. So once the Vishnu Granthi is also severed, and that's somewhere close to the navel, then the Kundalini energy rises up to the anāhata. So for a person who has now shed their attachment to all these materialistic things, who now has let go of their identity, and letting go of that identity is a big step in life. That ahankaram being removed is a big step in life. For that person, the moment we are not oriented towards ourselves, what happens? Then we are oriented towards other people. And a person who's always thinking about other people, they show up to this world as a compassionate person. And if you see, that person's heart is filled with love. So anāhata. So when you conquer your senses, and conquering your senses is needed to let go of this identity, because our senses is what influences all our mind, and our mind, whatever gets into our mind, can only be through one of our senses. If that's controlled, then the mind will start behaving. That's the way to tune our mind. And for someone, when the mind starts behaving properly, we don't have too many desires. We start to align ourselves with the desire of the Devi, and for that person, they're full of compassion. And that is the start of experiencing liberation. A person who can shed the difference between me and others and start to be kind and compassionate towards other people, that time the liberation has started. Until then, you're simply working on setting the foundation. So for such people, she gives the varadā. What is the varadam? The varadā means bestowing the boons. What boons that they give? The next place it will raise is the Vishuddhi Chakra that we saw last time. So once that gets into the Vishuddhi Chakra, at that point, the compassion in your heart starts to manifest in the speech. So anyone for whom the Kundalini energy has raised up to the Vishuddhi Chakra, that person starts to express themselves in a compassionate manner. Such as a person who's always speaking comforting words. They are a person that people feel comfortable being around. The people feel safe being around. Once they get to that, then the Kundalini energy has to raise all the way up to the Ajna Chakra. And at that point, there is a very important Granthi that we have to remove, and that's called as Rudhira Granthi. Rudhira Granthi is all the conditioning that we have gone through. Once we are always the product of our experiences, and there are certain experiences that would have just gone into our subconscious, and without even knowing, that's how we act. And actually those kind of grooving and the way we think is what makes us us. Otherwise we can be anybody, and the Rudhira Granthi will need to be. So she bestows those people who have conquered their senses with the ability to go forward in their Kundalini energy, Kundalini awakening, and reach the Sahasrara. So that's why she is mahāvīrendra varadā. rākiṇyambā svarūpiṇī. So who is she? She is in the form of the deity called Rākiṇi. So Rākiṇi is the presiding deity for the Anāhata Chakra. So we've covered all the namas in here. So let's take a quick look at a story related to the nama śyāmābhā. So Shyama is a goddess who is the tantric form of Saraswati. So we've seen already Kalidasa's story, right? In Kalidasa's story, he goes to the temple and then Kali writes in his tongue, and then all the knowledge there is floods into him. And as soon as Kalidasa got that knowledge, the first thing he did is he composed a poem called śyāmālādhi. It is also a stotram, śyāmālādhi. Many of you might have heard about it. It is Mānikya Veenam Upalalayantim Madalasam Manjula Vagvilasam Mahindra Neela Dyutikomalangim Matanga Kanyam Manasasmarame. So Shyama is the Shyamala Devi, who is considered as the tantric form of Saraswati. She is also called as Matangi. Even in that Śyāmālādhi, you can see she is Matanga Kanya, so or Matanga Muni's daughter. So we'll take a look at the origination of Matangi, and we'll also look at, she's also called as Raja Matangi, and she's also called as Uchchista Matangi. So we'll take a look at the story related to it. So we'll look at the story of Matanga Muni and how Parvati was born as the daughter of Matanga Muni, and that's why she's called as Matanga Kanya. So Matanga Muni is one of the greatest munis, a big rishi, and when he was young, he came to know that he was a Chandala. He was raised in a Brahmin household, but then he came to know that he is a Chandala, meaning he is born to someone of a lower caste. And Matanga Muni, when he was young, was playing with his friends on the streets, and there was a donkey foal that they happened to, a young donkey. And just as usual with little kids, without realizing, they were pulling the donkey's tail, they were running with it, they were scaring it, and looking at the pain of its young one. The mother donkey was very upset and was crying, and the mother donkey said loudly, "What can be expected of a Chandala? Such is the behavior and attitude and mindset of a Chandala." So that came as a big surprise for Matanga. At that time, he realized that he wants to aim higher in life, and therefore he starts an intense penance towards Shiva. And he keeps praying and praying. Many years have passed, and he's just gotten down to bare bones. He's hardly able to hold it, but even then he doesn't stop his penance, and he's continuously praying. And Shiva was very pleased with his penance, and so Shiva appears in his appears in front of him. And at that point, Matanga Muni has completely realized himself. He is a self-realized soul, an enlightened soul. And because of the power of his penance, he was able to see Shiva directly. He was able to see the form of Shiva. And that is something that is very rare. It doesn't happen for everybody. So Shiva looks at him, and Shiva says, "What is it that you would like?" And so Matanga Muni says that, I've reached self-realization. Now I've even seen you. So there is nothing that I want for myself, and I have kind of crossed all of this. But what I would like to do is to live a life that's of use for other people. So if you can teach me some succinct text through which I can teach other people how to live a life that is full of enjoyment, worldly enjoyment, or how to achieve liberation, then I would like to do that. I would like to go help other people. And Shiva was so happy listening to it, and therefore Shiva blessed him, and he taught him what is called as Parameshwara Agama. So that tells how you should conduct yourself, or what are the things that you have to do in order to either lead a life that where you can have worldly enjoyment, or you can get to liberation. So it is considered to be one of the sacred scripts. So such is the power of Matanga Muni, and he is the same rishi in whose ashram Shabari met Rama. So it is in Matanga Muni's ashram. And also Matanga Muni is the one who cursed Vali. So he appears extensively in Ramayana. So he cursed Vali, and that's why Vali could not come to the Rishyamukha mountain, and that allowed for Sugriva to be able to hide there. So that's the Matanga Muni. And Matanga Muni lived in Himalayas, and he usually resided there, and he became good friends with the Parvata Raja. And one day Matanga Muni started the penance again, and this time he was praying towards Shakti. So he went on praying for a while, and Matanga Muni is a great rishi. Therefore, Parvati wanted to appear, and she was a bit surprised though. When Parameshwara asked, he said, there is nothing for me, and already he has this agama, that she didn't know what else he wanted, but she anyway appeared and said, what is the boon that I can give? And then at that time, Matanga Muni said, I and Himalayas are good friends. And when I was talking to him one day, he said that, he has something that nobody else has. He said the Shakti herself is his daughter, so I have Parvati. So that is something that's a special thing about me, that's an honor for me. At that point, I also felt like I wanted to be the father of Shakti herself. So I'm praying to you, so you will be born as a daughter for me. So immediately Parvati blessed, and she said, I'll be born as a daughter for you. And therefore, she appeared in Matanga Muni's wife's dream, following which Matanga Muni's wife conceived, and she delivered a baby whom they called as Matangi, because she is the daughter of Matanga. And Matangi went on to become Mantrini, who is the Prime Minister of Lalitambika. So she's also called as Śyāmābhā, and Mantrini fought with Lalitambika in the war against Bandasura. And we can all see that there are all these shlokas 24 to 34 where they say how Mantrini killed one of the brothers of Bandasura. So that is about Matangi. And it's also said that Matangi is none other than Meenakshi. So Meenakshi is also called as Raja Matangi. And Matangi, there is another form of Matangi which is called as Uchishta Matangi. So it is one of the, Matangi is one of the Mahadasa Vidyas. So there are 10 forms of Parvati or Shakti. It is said that when Dakshayani wanted to go to the yajna of Daksha, Shiva told her not to go, but she really insisted, and she was really pushing Shiva to agree, and Shiva would not, and he kept moving away, and she took different forms, and each form became scarier and scarier. Finally, Shiva consented and let her go for the yajna. So that's called as the Dasa Mahavidyas. And those Dasa Mahavidyas, near Kamakya temple, it's supposed to have other temples that account for this Dasa Mahavidya. So Matangi is one of the Dasa Mahavidyas. And it's also said that she is in the form of a Uchishta Matangi, which is what the tantric rituals align around. And it is said that Parvati wanted to go to her father's house to stay there for some time. And as we all know, Shiva likes to keep Parvati close to him. He doesn't want her to go. He's worried that he'll miss her badly, but she is insisting that she wants to go, so he let her go to her father's house. And days passed, and Parvati is having a fun time being in her dad's house, being pampered. All her friends are there. Life is cool, but Shiva is missing Parvati terribly, and many days passed and many months passed, and she is not returned yet. And Shiva really wanted to see her. So, but it was also not easy for him to just like that show up in his father-in-law's house. So he was thinking about it. So he disguised as a bangle seller. And so he took all these bangles and he went to the place, and Parvati was with her friends, and he came as a bangle seller, and therefore everybody was excited to buy bangles. So they all bought bangles, beautiful bangles, and he fit for everybody. And so after everybody bought bangles, Parvati, being the daughter of the king, was going to pay for everybody. And so she asked the bangle seller, name your price. And the bangle seller looked at Parvati and he said, the price is that you have to spend a day with me. And now Parvati is completely outraged. She's a married woman. How dare this bangle seller look at her and ask her to spend a day with him? And she's not just any married woman. She's married to Shiva. So she's thinking, who has the audacity to come and talk to Shiva's wife and ask her to come and spend a day? So she is so mad at him. But then while she's thinking itself, she realizes the only person who will have the audacity to speak to Shiva's wife like this is Shiva himself. And therefore she recognizes, and also through her all the powers, she realizes the person who's standing in front of her is none other than Shiva. And so he has come to just play with her. And so she realizes that. But also the other people are around and they're all thinking, what is this guy doing, asking like this? And so she wants to teach him a lesson. So she tells him, not now, I'll pay your price, but it'll be at the time of my choosing. So you go, I'll come when I'm ready to come. So then Shiva goes back, and then Shiva is in his place and he's getting ready for his evening prayers, and he's staying in a place where all the respectable people are. And then suddenly there shows up a woman who is extremely tempting. She's an enchantress, and one look at her, people can't resist. She's coming like that, but she comes as a lower caste woman. So just looking at her, people can be very sure as to she is a lower caste woman. And so she gets into Shiva's place, and now everybody else is looking and thinking, what does he have to do with this woman? And then she goes in and she says, I've come to pay your price. And then she tries to be very tempting. And then Shiva dallies with her. And then she asks, is this how you behave if your wife is not around? Any lady who shows up, you dally with her? And then Shiva smiles and says, that he knew from the beginning that this was Parvati. And they both laugh at the jokes, and each one was playing a joke at the other. And Parvati is extremely fond of that persona that she took, that form of the Chandalini form, and therefore she said that this will be one of my form, and I will bless all my devotees this way. And she's called as Uchishta Chandalini because Uchishta means leftovers. So generally when we pray to God, we only give things that are not touched by other people. We won't eat the food and then give us a prasadam. But for Uchishta Chandalini, for her worship, leftovers are the primary thing. She accepts leftovers. And so that is how they all pray. And generally with all this tantric rituals, etc., the goddess is also a fierce form and they are very powerful. So anyone who pursues all of this should also balance it in a way that they are able to receive the blessings. So she is a tantric form of Saraswati, which means Saraswati is knowledge and wisdom. So anyone who pursues these Rajamatangi or Shyamala or Uchishta Chandalini will get their boons fulfilled and they'll be granted complete wisdom, but it may just come all at once. So anyone who pursues the tantric way has to also make sure that they are able to deal with the energy that's coming their way because of the fruits of their action. So that's a little bit about Uchishta Chandalini, Rajamatangi and Meenakshi. There is also another story that was related to the Meenakshi temple. I'll just add here, it's not directly related to the Nama, but it's related to Meenakshi. And this is about the Chitra Paurnami, and this is related to that. Once Indra was in his Svargaloka, and we all know Indra's Svargaloka is the most beautiful place. And Indra's garden has flowers that nobody else has in any world. So such is the beauty, and we all know that his court is filled with beautiful women. Everything in Svargaloka is beautiful. So Indra was just admiring all of it and feeling very proud about how he has all these beautiful things. At that time, his Guru Brahaspati came, and he did not see Guru. And the Guru felt very insulted and he disappeared. He thought, Indra doesn't even respect me. I don't want to be his Guru anymore. And without the teacher being available, the war strategy and all, only teachers decide. Without a guru, the devas were suffering a lot. So Indra decided to have another guru. So he went to another rishi called Twasta, and that rishi's son Vishwarupa was supposed to be the new guru. And Vishwarupa was an amazing guru. He taught them everything, and the devas were beginning to win. But without Indra's knowledge, Vishwarupa's mother belonged to the Asura clan. Father was the Deva on the side of Devas. So when he was doing offerings and when he was doing sacrifices, etc., some of the benefits of that sacrifice he was also giving to the Asuras, which really made Indra very mad. And without thinking, he beheaded Vishwarupa, which made Twasta very mad. And he thought that was a very wrong thing to do. First of all, killing your teacher is not accepted. So, and someone who was helping him. So he created a demon called Vritrāsura, and in order to kill Vritrāsura demon, Vritrāsura was giving a lot of trouble to Indra. In order to kill Vritrāsura, Indra was directed by Vishnu to go get the bones of Dadichi Maharishi. Dadichi Maharishi gladly gave up his bones, and through which Vishnu made the Vajrayudha for Indra. So with that they were able to kill Vritrāsura. But what had happened is, because Indra had killed Vishwarupa, killing of a Brahmin, he had a Brahmahati dosha. And then even though Dadichi Maharishi gave up his life willingly, that also added to the karma of Indra, because of which he was heavily impacted by the Brahmahati dosha, which resulted in him not being able to do his job effectively, which was affecting all the devas. So everybody didn't know what to do. By then Brihaspati had reconciled with all the things that had happened. So he said, you have to go on a pilgrimage. He told Indra, you have to go on a pilgrimage, go around the earth, and then go on a pilgrimage. Then that will remove your sins, and you can then do your job effectively. So Indra was going on the pilgrimage. He went from place to place in all the earth. And when he reached Madurai, he suddenly felt like all his sins were lifted. He suddenly had this vigor and energy and everything. So Indra was very surprised. How come in Madurai I was able to get all my sins removed? And then when he went around under a Kadamba tree, he saw that there was a Shivalinga. So immediately he realized that the Shivalinga was the reason. So it was Shiva who removed his sins. And therefore he wanted to build a temple around it, and he wanted to worship Shiva and thank Shiva for removing all his sins. And it happened to be a Chitra Paurnami day, and therefore Indra wanted to do the puja, and he wanted to look for lotuses, but he had no lotus. And then at that time there was a lotus that manifested itself, and there was a golden lotus there. And then Indra used the flowers from that particular pond, and he worshipped Shiva on that day. So that pond that manifested itself is supposed to be the Pottramarai Kulam in Meenakshi temple. And Indra did that puja for Shivalinga, which is also a Swayambhu. He did that puja, and therefore on Chitra Paurnami nights, that puja continues to be done in Meenakshi temple. It's called as Devendra Puja. And on Chitra Paurnami is also the time where the kāḻarātryādi gets into the water, and then he realizes that his sister is already married, and he returns halfway. So that also happens on a Chitra Paurnami day. So this is something related to the Meenakshi temple, and on that particular day it happened to be Chitra Paurnami when we are discussing. So including this story for anyone who could not attend that day, and this is another story. That's all for today. Thank you.